Another happy coincidence that was not based on any kind of business decision was the decision for us to start a student group. Back before we had even heard that the official SDK was going to be open, because it was such an enjoyable thing to work with the third-party coders, Lorenzo actually formed a University of Utah iPhone programming group, which, as far as we're aware, is the oldest iPhone programming group in the United States, outside of Apple corporate. We worked with this group and kind of pulled it together, had some initial meetings, decided what we wanted to do. We decided that we wanted it to be something relatively low-key. We wanted people to come and be able to ask questions, as well as to give lectures on topics. Apple has a Worldwide Developers Conference that puts forth a lot of information that's useful for coders, but people aren't always able to make it. As well as their documentation is sparse in some locations. There's lots and lots of information that one learns as they're going through the technical documentation that you can save time for someone else. So we formed this group with that idea of removing people's roadblocks and really getting them excited about writing software and being able to share in the joy of what we had of putting things together. Started having meetings for this group. When the SDK came out, our group got a lot more student members. People became very, very interested in the group. We taught these students and discovered that one of the biggest pitfalls was that students don't have a lot of time. They need a reason in order to work on some kind of larger project. So many of them would go through and learn some things. They would listen to us, but they would never actually take that step, like Lorenzo and I did when we left Budget Rent-A-Car, to really build something that's complete and new and something that people would actually want, rather than just little technical demos. So we decided that an official class would do that. If students could get credit for coming and working on iPhone and mobile application programming, they would actually have a reason to undergo something a little bit more innovative. It'd be a lot easier to get them to go from building a final project to building a final project that they can sell. And so that was the original reason to do that. Also, I wanted to know whether or not academia was the place for me in terms of teaching. So killed two birds with one stone that way. We approached the department. This was in the middle of the initial economic downturn, so it was very difficult to talk to the department and get them to okay some funding for something new during that time. But we were able to prevail with them and finish my master's degree, and that gave, for some reason, a little more credence to the idea. And originally, we had support from the humanities side of campus, actually. We met up with the fine arts department, and they wanted to put together an iPhone application that would allow them to talk about all of the events that are on campus. And that originally sparked a few different applications that are currently being worked on at the university in mobile. But we asked them if we could do a user interface design course, because user interfacing was so important to us, and they jumped in. And they actually picked up my business partner, Lorenzo, who doesn't have a degree of any kind. They okayed him to teach this course. So the initial kind of of the fine arts department was what we were able to use to leverage the CS department into letting us do a technical class. So we have a user interface design course and a programming course at the University of Utah. And shortly we will be having our first final project session with students that both of those disciplines were put together. We had students who are very artistically minded designing software, and the students that are technically minded working together on final projects. And so that's been a very good thing to have Lorenzo teaching one course and me teaching the other so we could work together. The reason why this student group was a happy business decision was that we discovered that there were lots of very good students. They were able to do a very good job in writing software, and we could see which students would really fit well in writing mobile software for us. So it became a recruiting outlet for us. It was not initially our plan to create a recruiting outlet at the University of Utah, and originally I thought it was kind of a conflict of interest to be recruiting our students, and that idea was dispelled rather quickly. The university really wants us to hire their students. We really continued forward with the student group despite the fact that it didn't have any financial reason to do so, because we wanted to give back to the community. Lorenzo and I have both believed that giving some portion of your time to other people is important, and we wanted to make that a goal of our business, even though it's not a financial goal. Something that we believe will end out having financial results. The first step in getting our iPhone group transitioned into something official really was making the decision that we were going to have weekly meetings. We wanted to dedicate actual time. It was a decision that we were going to sacrifice. We were going to make this thing real, going to jump forward with both feet. And by saying we were going to have weekly meetings, and that establishing a time for that, reserving room for that, saying what the layout of those meetings were going to be, and then putting actual time into the preparation for those meetings, took it from being kind of a ragtag association of students to this is something that acts like a class. It was new territory. Really the only presentations that I had done were for the university and other small things that most students are expected to do. Again, having learned another language and lived in another country for a long time was very helpful in the communication. But I also had the example of professors at the university seeing which professors taught well and which ones didn't and why. Lorenzo has a different teaching technique than I do, but we were able to kind of pool and find the things that work quite well for us and effectively pass that information on to others. When we put that information together, it transitioned into corporate classes. I was approached by a business owner that wanted to teach. That wasn't really part of the center of our business at the time. And I just decided to do that just on my own. And was able to utilize a lot of the ideas that came out of the student group to teach corporate classes. Teaching those corporate classes, I was able to further refine the material to where that material would be useful in teaching the official course. I believe it was through the student group. I believe it was a student that knew this business owner, and he passed my information along. And that's actually a very, very common thing in our company. We'll associate with some business owner or someone who has a software need through a student, which is another great fringe benefit of having started that student group with more altruistic intentions, but finding that it was actually quite useful in a business sense.